It's 7:01, and we're starting the meeting right now. Everyone's present. And our first topic is decide what the most powerful argument against IDS is.
So I was thinking about it. We could, if you guys want, to just do a refresher on the 5 and just talk about them first. Pros and cons.
Yeah.
And then we'll just pick one that we think is the best argument against it, and then the best argument for it.
Yeah.
You guys good with that?
Yeah, good to me. Let me pull this up here just to refresh my memory.
So response to the 5 arguments. I'm looking at the second part of the reading with William Newell responding to Professor Benson's 5 arguments. So the first argument was interdisciplinary studies rests on serious conceptual confusion.
Yes. What do you guys think about that one?
I think that, his argument for it seemed like it was basically that, like, interdisciplinary studies couldn't be taken seriously because, like, they don't really know what their interdisciplinaryism is. They just know that, like we know we're trying to make connections, but from the outside it looks like we're just confused and frantically looking for answers. That's kind of how I interpreted that one.
Yeah, that sounds logical. The people in their own disciplines are very pointed and focused. Like in one of the previous readings, that can lead to some tunnel vision. But yeah, I can see how people would think, since interdisciplinarians do choose to look at it from so many different perspectives, that it kind of, we're just, taking shots in the dark.
Yeah, it looks like there's not really a purpose or a method behind it. Like, I think, like, how you learn about the scientific method in school?
Yeah.
Like finding a hypothesis and then solving for it and being very it's very conventional thinking, the whole method, right? It's a process to get to an end result. And I think that's how most universities and most degrees and most disciplines operate, whereas interdisciplinary is kind of, there's not really a set process, right? We know we're here to make connections in places that don't really have previous connections. So from the outside looking in, it doesn't look as organized.
Yeah, and I said when you focus on 2 concentrations, it's kind of like when you multitask, you lose focus, and it causes confusion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. But the second argument, it says a second argument against interdisciplinary studies holds that it is a pedagogically doubtful business to spend time in interdisciplinary learning projects when the student lacks a mature base in any of the contributing disciplines.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty solid argument, right? Because basically what it's getting at is it's saying, how can we justify interdisciplinary learning when there's no base in each of the disciplines? So, like, each of us has 2 concentrations. Are we getting a strong enough base to be able to make interdisciplinary connections between the 2? I think from the outside looking in, again, it's easy to say that we're not getting a strong enough base in the subjects that we're learning. But from my experience and everything that I've done, I feel like my degree to this point, to this class, has been more about my specific concentrations and building that base than it has been about interdisciplinary studies. And to be completely honest, I feel like I would have been better off learning about interdisciplinary studies before I learned as much as I did about my concentrations. And I know that it kind of depends on the student too when they decide to take IDS, at what point in their degree path. But for me, I started taking them kind of late, and I don't really feel like it's made a difference to have a base in my concentration. I think I'd be better off knowing how to apply interdisciplinary methods to my concentrations early on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess when I was reading through it, I kind of thought like, people looking in, not familiar with interdisciplinary studies, kind of sees us as a jack of all trades, but a master of none.
Yeah.
Like we know a little bit about, a lot of stuff, but, other people know a lot about, a little bit of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's how, so my job and work, that's how they label us too. They're like same thing, jack of all trades, but master of none.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a purpose. There needs to be some people in this world that have that ability and aren't so specialized that they can't see anything from another perspective.
Yeah, I think like in identifying a problem, I think you need the interdisciplinarians to help identify that problem.
Yeah.
And then after it's identified and like a solution is agreed upon, then I think that's when you send in the people with specific disciplines to like execute,
Their
the solution.
portion of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that too, but it's like the example with the stream. I can't remember if it was this reading or the last reading, but the salmon stream, right? They dammed it all up, and all the engineers were like, "Yeah, it's not going to affect the salmon species." And all these people were saying it's not going to affect any of the salmon species, except for the experts on fish in that area, right? No one asked the biologists or anything that are responsible for that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of those two where like when you're problem solving, you need to make sure you consult with the right people. And I think part of that falls on the shoulders of the interdisciplinarians that can say, hey, we haven't talked to the biologist that's going to tell us whether or not these salmon species are going to go extinct after we dam this river up.
Yeah.
So being able to utilize your resources too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that in interdisciplinary sciences now, I think I have a pretty solid base as of now.
Yeah.
Compared to like other majors.
Yeah, I kind of fell into this major, but I've been pleasantly surprised with it.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I actually kind of like it. It's actually helping me with my like real life problems and stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't find the third argument anywhere.
So number 3, this is just summed up from the rebuttal to Professor Benson, but interdisciplinary study impedes essential disciplinary competence. So the substance of Professor Benson's third argument is that time is scarce in the undergraduate curriculum. Time that is required to provide adequate training in the more important disciplines rather than impossibly desirable but clearly less important interdisciplinary studies.
Yeah, I think that's like I don't really think students need to learn about everything. Like we have so many general like electives that we need to take. And I just don't think it's necessary for some people, but it's really not necessary for everyone to learn about all that stuff. And that's why, that's 120 credit hours to be able to like whatever you're going to learn about that thing. Interdisciplinary studies learn how to be interdisciplinary, and a lot of other stuff it seems like a kind of waste of time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the current higher education system right now, that's 120 credit hours, it doesn't really give much wiggle room for some of the more technical degrees, right? Because if you think about technology, right, the amount that it's advanced in the past 30, 40 years is ridiculous, right? So how do we keep up with that? In the last 30 or 40 years, the amount of credit hours required to get a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering hasn't changed. It's still 120 hours to my knowledge. But the technology and the amount of learning that goes into getting that degree is exponential compared to where it was in the 1980s, right? The basics are all still the same, but the technology and stuff that we have in those fields is so much more advanced that I would agree with you, Sean. Like, you don't really want to waste time on courses that aren't necessarily applicable, but at the same time, I think if there's any gen ed that's applicable, interdisciplinary would be one of them, especially for the more technical degrees, because technical degrees are always riddled with problems, right? So if you take out maybe one history class that a electrical engineer is taking, and you add in an interdisciplinary studies class, that's going to teach that engineer how to problem solve and how to utilize their resources and how to outsource for information that they don't necessarily know, and then combine it all to get the best product. So I could see both ways, right? Like, there's good things and bad things about taking away from that 120 credit hour system for certain classes. But there's definitely classes in the general education system that everyone takes that might not be as essential as we think they are.
Yeah, I agree. And it's good to see like another or another discipline, like another perspective, because like in electrical engineering, you want to have like the other perspective of like political science or whatever.
Yeah.
Combined. Where's the third or the fourth argument?
So I'm on, let's see, the fourth to last page right now, I think.
My mic is being
Page 115 is where number 4 is at, and it's interdisciplinary courses are shallow. Professor Benson's fourth argument against including interdisciplinary courses in an undergraduate liberal arts education is that they trade intellectual rigor for topical excitement. 3 criticisms are leveled under this heading. First, too many interdisciplinary courses are big picture counterparts of the trendy, relevant, and superficial treatments of important issues by the mass media. Second, such courses are taught in a sloppy fashion, basically, that doesn't cultivate critical skills. And then third, too often the anticipated synthesis fails to materialize, leaving students the guinea pigs for irresponsible faculty.
I remember when I was doing the Pruzal thing last night. I think, Ben, you actually commented on this, and it was the argument was, higher learning should be comprised of lectures, papers, exams, discussions, and instead the argument against interdisciplinary, having videos and guest speakers and what they say, films, special events as different ways of learning. People are kind of giving that some grief, but it's 2019. It's got to update with the times, learning.
Yeah, and I think also, so my argument to this was interdisciplinary in higher education is kind of a new concept and a new major. So it hasn't been perfected, and I think it's going to take time to get perfected. And an interdisciplinary course is going to be shallow if the professor makes it shallow. But any course in college is going to be a shallow course if the professor makes it a shallow course, right? Your class is only as good as your professor and the content that they put into it. So I think that argument's kind of broad and generalized because that can be with anything.
Yeah, and there's always you can always put in the extra work too, and go to tutoring or read up in library or do some extra researching.
Yeah.
So it's up to the person. It's not the course.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the fifth one, interdisciplinary courses are relatively expensive. I don't
I
think
think
they're expensive.
that's tough for me to speak for because I don't really know they're what they're spending to put together interdisciplinary courses like this, but it doesn't seem like it would be any more expensive than any other class. From what I've experienced so far, like yeah, we have a little bit better software with Play Pause It and Perusall, but we also don't pay a book fee out of pocket. If it was that expensive to do interdisciplinary classes, then they could just charge us that extra technology fee for those two softwares. It doesn't seem like there's anything in this that's that much more expensive than any other class.
No, probably not. Just the formation of anything new. It takes time to you know gather. If they're charging the same tuition for everyone, and one major has 20,000 students, and the other major has 500 students, of course the one with 500 is not going to be as cost effective until it gets more popularity and notoriety, and
Yeah.
you know people think come to think it's a solid degree program.
Have you guys noticed in your tuition, is this class more expensive than others?
No.
I don't think so.
I think aren't they all like standard prices?
Yeah, just by credit hour, it doesn't really matter.
I
That's
think
what I thought.
Barry,
That's why I mean maybe for the college it's more expensive, but like I said, we can't really speak to that outside of just pure observations and guesses.
yeah, I think the Barrett students are more expensive.
Yeah, I believe that.
I don't think the interdisciplinary courses are expensive compared to the rest.
Yeah. I do know it's nice not having to buy any textbooks right now.
Yeah, heck yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I saw it and I was like, dude, this is awesome. All
And
right, so we've got 5 arguments. We kind of talked about each one of them. So out of those 5, we have to choose which argument was most powerful argument against interdisciplinary studies.
hmm, maybe the first one, where it causes confusion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because they don't really give you instruction on like how to like connect both of the topics into your own life, or how to integrate into your own life.
Yeah,
You just have to figure out yourself. It's all like conceptual, whatever.
yeah, yeah. I could see that argument being pretty valid, especially like I think part of the reason that they don't tell you how to integrate your concentrations is because if they told us how to integrate our concentrations, then it would just be conventional thinking, right? It wouldn't be integrative, it wouldn't be critical thinking, and we wouldn't be creating anything new. There wouldn't be a conceptual blend going on.
Hmm.
It would just be, another instance where someone told us how to think. So I think kind of the purpose, but in not telling us how to integrate the two concentrations is to leave room for us to create something, right? And think outside the box. But at the same time, on the flip side, like devil's advocate, I can see how the outside looking in, this looks like it's causing conceptual confusion because if a student doesn't grasp that core concept that you're supposed to use the things that you learn in interdisciplinary studies and apply it to your concentrations to better the two of them or to make something out of the two of them, or just in general in life, then you're just left with conceptual confusion. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe yeah, I guess the first one is the biggest one.
Most powerful argument on behalf of interdisciplinary studies.
I like how it's all conceptual and you have to think outside the box. It's different. And I like how you get to pick two different things that you are interested in to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think number two is probably the best argument for it. Um, Professor Benson kind of like, so number two is interdisciplinary studies requires a mature base in the discipline. And then, I'm sorry, the other professor, Newell, I think is his name. He kind of lashes back, and I think in this one paragraph he says, I believe, however, that there's an essential complementarity between the disciplines and interdisciplinary studies that makes it desirable for students to learn them together from first semester freshman year on, if not in high school. An academic discipline is a challenging intellectual game at best and sterile and meaningless exercise at worst. When it is taken out of context of human experience, which is always too broad and complex to be captured fully by any one discipline. He's just basically saying, like, you have to have multiple disciplines come together to give that interdisciplinary experience, and we don't necessarily have to. He argues against the mature base thing, saying, hey, we don't necessarily have to have a base in interdisciplinary studies. While yes, it's helpful to have knowledge on those topics, it's not absolutely necessary. We just have to have a general understanding of them and know how to apply them or know who to talk to about those topics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right after the part where you read, it says, like, if Professor Newell says if students, if students don't learn interdisciplinary studies early enough, then they get indoctrined in like the disciplined way of thinking, and it'll be harder to get them away from that so they can have the outside thinking.
Yeah, and that kind of plays into what I was talking about earlier. I was like I'm honestly surprised interdisciplinary thinking or just integrative thinking isn't introduced earlier, because that's like, this is the first time, I think, maybe not the first time, but it's like one of the main times that I've had a class that's like really pulled me away from the conventional thinking, from like the A or B answer, the true or false.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I think our second meeting when we were talking about the Montessori schools, like that.
Yep.
Kind of early interdisciplinary exposure.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so I think for this, you guys all agree too. His response to the second argument against it is the most powerful argument on behalf of interdisciplinary studies.
I would think so.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. Number 3, discuss the most important skill or trait you want to develop and be able to articulate to others to offset the inherent weaknesses of an IDS degree. I would say kind of what we talked about right here. So at my work, I'm an instructor, so I teach some other people how to do our job if they're new to it. And my job's big on critical thinking and being able to, honestly, conceptual blends, being able to make connections between two things that aren't necessarily a clear-cut connection. So I think the skill or trait I want to develop the most is to be able to teach others about integrative thinking, because I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough in education, especially early on, high school and middle school and stuff like that, unless you go to, like Sean and I talked about, a Montessori school or something like that where they talk about that stuff. But being able to develop that skill to be able to teach people about integrative thinking and how that's going to benefit them when it comes to problem solving.
Yeah, and any job where you have like choices to make throughout the day, like some jobs, you just go in there, you do the same thing every day, and you don't really need that kind of way of thinking. But yeah, like a teacher, you have lot of choices you need to make, and integrative people who've been studying integrative thinking will be able to run through all those choices in their head, quickly. And if none are going to work, then they have the skills to put all those together to form, something different, which will work for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important skill I want to develop is to I forgot what I was gonna say, is to fight against like it's like all conceptual where there's no instruction, maybe balance it out. And then maybe we could solve some of our world's problems that haven't been solved yet, like cancer or something, or like anything big like that with IDS.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the most important skill I want to develop.
Yeah, I think all the major world problems are going to have some form of interdisciplinary, involvement in some kind of in any solution.
Yeah, it has to, honestly, especially with how big our problems are.
Yeah.
How integrative they are off the bat, right? Like a problem in the United States is going to affect pretty much every other country in the world. Just because of how big of a country we are and how the world operates, how we all trade together and do business together. Our economies are built on each other's. So pretty much, I completely agree with you, Sean. All of our problems are going to have some kind of integrative backing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool, guys. That's 3. Does anyone have anything else to add?
Nope.
I think we covered everything.
I think we're good. Is this our last group meeting? Do you guys know?
Yeah, I am going through the meeting instructions. Says, yeah, this is last live meeting your group will do this semester, so no need to schedule a new one.
Heck yeah, man. Well, we did it. Good stuff, guys. It was a pleasure working with you guys.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
for sure. Are both of you doing 302 second session
I'm doing BIS 302.
with McCormick, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing McCormick, I believe.
Or Mc something.
Yep, same here.
Let me pull it up real quick. I can't remember. Yeah, McCormick, BIS 302, interdisciplinary inquiry.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
Well, maybe I'll see you guys over there.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And who knows? Professor Castle may get us back together for one more thing before we're done. Do you guys know what the last day of the session is? Kind of went really quick. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it's coming up. Let me actually have it right here. Hold on. So it's going to be June 27th.
Wow. Yeah, we're more than halfway through.
Yeah, that's fast.
Crazy.
Yeah, that did go fast.
Yeah, but good luck with the rest semester.
Yep.
Yeah, heck yeah, guys. It was good to meet you,
too.
Ben and Sean. Take care.
Yep. We got our phone numbers, so keep in touch if you need anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help with any homework or any questions.
Cool, man.
Sweet.
All right, see ya.
All right, see you, fellas.
Yep.